and the Made Storytelling Hours. I'm the guest curator for this evening, Steve Deeble, and I would like to welcome you. We have a delicious program for you this evening. A meal in 3 courses, if you will. We're going to be hearing from Sasha Cano, Chef Paul Buchanan, and who else? The one who? I'm sorry, I just blanked. Kasdan. Oh my God, Kasdan, I'm so sorry. Don't hurt me, please. Kasdan. Yeah, I know. That's why she's here. I wish I was as good. I'm sorry, Josh. Okay, they're gonna dock. They're docking me. They're already docking me. So here's the thing. I wanted to start by thanking Michelle Molina and Heather Kern and the team here at Made for all the amazing things that they do. And since Heather and Michelle aren't here, I thought it would be a great time to talk about them. Right? So, hey, me too. Yeah. So last night, was anybody down here for the Live After 5? That was amazing, right? Was that great? So these are the kinds of things that they're doing in Long Beach, and I am so excited to be a part of this. So let's get started. Yeah, okay, thank you. So I wanted to start out by talking a little bit about why I'm doing this, and that begins with a little story that starts across the street years ago when I was shooting a video for the Downtown Long Beach Associates. We were down there shooting, and there was a couple sitting at a table by King's Fish House eating, and they were from the Midwest here for a conference at the convention center. They saw us shooting, and they asked me, so what are you guys doing? And so I started by telling them about the video that we were producing for the DLBA. And then I started telling them about the Downtown Long Beach Associates and what they do for the businesses downtown. And then I started telling them about the history of Long Beach. And this woman starts laughing. And she says to me, "Ooh, you're quite the booster." And I thought, yeah, you know what? That's me. I am. I'm the booster. And so that's how I self-identify now. I am a booster of Long Beach. My family's been here since 1910. I love this place. I love the downtown. And I'm really happy to be here. And I try and help promote it in any way I can. So that's kind of part of the story. The other part of it is really, I thought I would share a little bit, since this is about food and community, to talk a little bit about my own experiences with food and community before we start introducing the featured speakers. So, first of all, my name is Deeble, which is actually derived from the name of a primitive agricultural implement called a dibbling stick, which is a hollow reed fluted at the top and pointed at the bottom, which you use. You drive it in the ground, and you dibble seeds into the ground. I kid you not. You can't make this shit up. Okay? So, growing up, I grew up in a family where my grandfather was a farmer in Minnesota. He raised grain, and he was the president of his grain silo co-op. So I have kind of that in the genes somewhere. Mom and dad, okay? Mom was Swedish and Norwegian, so we lived under the constant threat of lutefisk. She kept a jar of it in the refrigerator. I don't think that jar was ever actually opened, but yeah, if you misbehaved, you were gonna get the white fish. The other thing, though, was an amazingly magical thing called lefse. Yeah? You know lefse? So my mom used to get it from the old ladies at Our Savior's Lutheran Church, which I think, isn't that over by Portfolio? Yeah. And I mean, that's amazing stuff. It's like a potato pancake, flat, thin, and you put butter and sugar and jam and all this good stuff on it. And there's nothing like it. I actually managed to make some once. Chef, I made lefse. Yeah, right? So that's my mom's side. My dad's side was British, okay? And of course, the British are well known for their haute cuisine. Actually, it's kind of, what's that? Now they have great cuisine? Okay, when I was growing up, you know, toad in the hole and spotted dick, these are not dishes that inspire. Yeah. However, in doing family history research, I learned we were actually from Cornwall. And one of the things in Cornwall, my father's family were miners. If you ever watch Poldark, okay, so my relatives were the ones covered in filth with bad teeth. Yeah, well, in Cornwall they were hard rock miners, copper and tin, right? Same idea. In fact, they emigrated to Wales and mined coal, which is how they came to the United States. So they ate they were meat pies called pasties. And when I was a kid, we used to go to this place in Los Alamitos called the Pasty Kitchen. I know, I still go there. But at the time, I didn't realize that this is actually something from my own heredity, this is my own past. They made these meat pies so the miners could take them underground, and they could eat them, and they didn't have to be wrapped, because they were basically, it's like a pie that's closed in on itself, right? Like a sort of a calzone, if you will, with beef and potatoes, and I mean, they make different kinds of them, but they're really great. So that's family-wise, background-wise, that's kind of some of the food influences. So one of the things about my family was we ate dinner at the table. And since this is about food and community, really your first community is your family. So sharing meals with the family was what we did. No TV during dinner. That was the rule. Except Friday nights. We got to watch some TV during dinner on Friday nights. So I was thinking, though, as I was preparing for this, I remember spending the night at my friend's house and discovered that at their dinner table, they were not allowed to speak during the meal. I thought, that's really weird. We sat at our table and told stories about what we did during the day. We shared our lives. And I honestly think that that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this right now, because I became a storyteller and a writer. So I think that's pretty important. Growing up, I ate tuna fish and mayonnaise sandwiches as my staple food for until college. At one point, I remember opening a can of tuna one day and going, oh no, I can't do this anymore. And I had to toss it. And it was a year before I could eat tuna again. I had a strange affinity for liver and onions. I mean, a lot of people can't even think about that, but I actually loved liver and onions. So, so that's some of the weirdness, actually, I think that's fairly normal stuff. The weird part is this. My parents decided when I was a kid that in order to protect the family's future, that the thing that they needed to do was start an avocado farm. Now, this is the mid-'60s. Nobody knew nothing from avocados. Okay. We started this farm down in Valley Center. That's where we spent our weekends. I lived Saturdays and Sundays with my family in a tool shed. That's really what it was. It was a tool shed. So we would go down there. We cleared this 10 acres of land. We planted 1,000 trees. We put in the irrigation system, fertilized. The trees at that time, I was a little kid. I was taller than these trees. It was a very unusual way to grow up. And then, of course, when the trees started producing, we had bags full of avocados that we would bring home every weekend. Tried to give them away. No one knew what avocados were, which is really funny to me now. And in fact, I didn't even like them. I mean, I was a little kid. Today, I love them. And I wish I had bags full of avocados, right? Now, the funny part is, honestly, the guy that had the ranch above us, he started planting these things called kiwis. And those were really weird. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I wanted to do this because I was feeling like there's an increasing divisiveness in our world, and that one of the things that brings people together is food, sharing meals. So I thought, what could I do? And I thought of this, food and community. And then I thought, I read an article about Sasha in the newspaper, and I thought, okay, there's my farmer. And I'd been seeing Chef Paul for the last couple of years at least, and the events that he's been catering and the things that he's been doing, and I thought, I want to meet that guy. So I'm going to set this up so I can meet him. So there was that. And then Kasdan, I met her a long time ago, and I saw what she did. And I thought, there's my restaurateur. So we put out the ask, and they all said yes. And I am so happy that they are here. So, logical segue then from the avocado ranch to the farm. Okay? So, today's 420, by the way. Happy 420, everybody. And the reason I mention that is because a long time ago I read an article, it was in an academic journal, and it was these anthropologists who said that the first crop that humans ever cultivated was cannabis. Now, damn right. I have to tell you, I am dubious. Yes, I said that. Yeah. So, but here's the thing. What I realized. Okay, I'm a writer, so I'm interested in words, in language. There's a word that we use to describe where we come from. What gives us strength? It describes our families, it describes our neighborhoods, it describes our friends, and all of those things from which we come. And that word is roots. Here's the deal. Community, in fact, civilization began in a field. Because first families, community, but when families started getting together, when we started cultivating food, that's when people stopped moving around and civilization started. So that's kind of what I'm thinking when I think of food and community in relation to farming. And so one of the things that was important to me was to have somebody represent that aspect of this relationship between food and community. And hey, nobody does that better than Sasha Kano. Come on up.
So because I've been working in the field all day, I'm gonna sit. I'm tired. So hello, my name is Sasha Kano. I see some super familiar faces here. Thank you all for coming. I made an Insta post and I have a couple things that people were interested to hear about, so I'm going to touch on those. If you haven't heard of me, or a little introduction is I run a half-acre farm here in Long Beach, and I've been on Farm Lot 59 for 8 years. I can't believe it. I know. And I thank my OG supporters. Carla, I love you for supporting my farm before it was a farm, when I used to buy produce from Aaliyah and sell produce that we grew and distributed it to families in front of Bellicosa in Bixby Knolls. Those were the original roots. Before I had the farm that I leased from the city of Long Beach from Park and Rec, I had a community garden in my neighborhood. I live in Wrigley, still live in the same house. Before I had the community garden, I had a front yard kind of produce exchange. Now they have the crop swaps, which are super popular. But in 2010, I had a blog, when people still did that. I'm not sure if that's still a thing. And I would post on there what was for exchange, and we called it the chalkboard. And I would leave on my front porch in this little copper pot things that we had extra of, salad, or if we lived next to you, your avocados would have been on my front porch. And we exchanged produce, and then it turned into this garden. And when we had the garden, it was a 2-year lease on housing development land. And we moved out, and it's still empty, unfortunately. It's been a really long time. Hopefully someday Habitat for Humanity will build there. That was the original intent. But I always thought that agriculture in the city was important. And I had a professional career working in art department and film. And I had a production mind. I did I'm embarrassed to say my IMDb portfolio, but there's a Chipmunk movie on there. That's all I'm going to say about that. It was an experience. But I did floral design and all kinds of really great things. And so I had that kind of mindset for production. And I knew from having that garden how difficult it was to maintain property in the city. You're held responsible for all the logistics of it, of course, maintenance and upkeep and being a community space. And so this farm that I have now was always intended to be production. And it was, how can we holistically produce as much as possible on a very small acreage with intent and purpose? And it was never my idea that it was going to be this food hub. It was never that. I just was driven on the work, and I want to grow salad and I want to grow herbs, and the food miles was a big thing for me. And when I started working with Aaliyah, I really got more involved in that. And what is food miles? And is California local? And is Bakersfield local? Is Fresno local? Is Texas local? Like, what does that mean? What is sustainable? What is organic? Like, all that stuff, now you hear about it and it's common and we talk about it, and you know, plastic bottles and straws and all this kind of stuff we're trying to get rid of. But this is 10 years ago, and we weren't really talking about that kind of stuff. And so the things that traveled the farthest, that had the most pesticides on it, were greens and salad. And so I really tried to focus on that and how to not drive stuff around. So when we started growing on the farm, I would say, like, there's no food miles. I walked it from the farm to the farm stand, or I walked it from the farm to the CSA pickup point. And that was a really great kind of, you know, marketing, unintentional kind of thing that we had going for us. So a little bit after we did the CSA, then I built the stand, and the farm stand is really what's happening now. And it's been 5 years. I can't believe it. Time flies, but the farm stand has been open on and off for 5 years, and it's opening again, hopefully, for the last time. I pulled my electrical permit today. Huge accomplishment, if anyone's been following my story. $400 out the door, ready to go. So thank you, everyone on the 4th floor. So hopefully, in the next couple weeks, our little retail store will be open, and it's right on the farm, and you can buy our products, other makers. It's not going to be so fabulous as this, but food products, stuff that we produce, our honey, our loofahs, mostly our produce, totally buying produce from other farmers, other organic growers and stuff, because we are only half acre. We would never produce enough eggs and citrus and potatoes and things like that everybody wants. So farm stand is super exciting for me. And it's on our farm. It's there now, and it's 2714 California Avenue, so right north of Sunnyside Cemetery. It's called Willow Springs Gulch, and it is Long Beach. It's the city of Long Beach, but Signal Hill is right across the street. And some things that people had posted they wanted to hear about was what drives me to do this kind of work. And I know. Insanity. It is Dina. Business owner, women in business, women in agriculture, farming with babies. I was pregnant when I secured the lease, and now my son will be 7 in a week. So that's kind of the timeline. We cleaned up the property for a year. It was an abandoned oil field. We replaced the soil. So that took a year. So we're on our 7th growing season, and the drive for me, it's obviously not financial security, emotional security, or stability in any way, but I think the work is important. I think that this town has to have a farm. If it doesn't, that's insane. It just doesn't make any sense. You have to have a farm in a community. People come to us and literally don't know where their food comes from. I mean, we hear that all the time. Kids don't know that tomatoes grow in a vine or peas, come from a pod. Like, we get it. Carrots grow in the ground. They don't understand. But they cannot recognize it. Like, you hand them a tomato and they don't know how to eat it. And you say, put it in your mouth, and they are awkward. They don't understand. And so having this farm in the city has opened up a whole ball of food policy, food activism, food security, land access, land rights, labor issues. I mean, I am no do-gooder normally, but all of a sudden I found myself in this world of pioneering all these issues that happen not only locally but statewide. And now I'm on these webinars for the Farm Bill, and big agriculture is subsidized. Why isn't urban farming subsidized? Because of land use. And we pay to be on our farm. So it's a huge ball of wax. And so when you support the farm, when you buy from the stand, when you're a restaurant and you buy our produce, it really funnels back into the local economy. And support small business, and small business Saturdays shouldn't be Saturday, it should be every day. But that is really true. Those dollars really do go back into sending my son to school and buying the things that we need and supporting places like this, and hiring. So right now we're hiring people to work in our retail store, and then we're going to hire hopefully some farmers, and writing grants and writing manuals. So I was told not to say I'm looking for an exit strategy, because that's not the way it comes off, isn't the way I mean it. I mean, I'm ready to teach and pass on the labor part of it all. And the next generation should be out there working. I mean, it's farm work. It is hard. Good thing is I don't have to go to the gym. Or I mean, maybe I should, I don't know, but I don't. I was sweating it out in there today, that's for sure. But it's a great place, and I'm fortunate to go to an open space for work every day. Today I saw, hawks chasing doves, and it's just a beautiful place to be, and I'm happy to do the work. I don't appreciate the setbacks that come from not only farming, but being in a city. And I don't know, I've never farmed rural. I don't come from farming. I learned a lot of this on YouTube. I mean, seriously. And books, I read all the books and I go to all the conferences and all that kind of stuff. But I don't have, this rich farming history. And when you farm in the city, it's different, because you don't have the knowledge next door. You don't have a tool share. You don't have someone that can come and plow your field for you and share that kind of knowledge that you gain from generations of farming. And so everything that I have now, I've learned in the last decade, on my own. And now I'm ready to pay that forward or write the manuals. I know we were talking about that. And when we met on the farm, I did know what a dibbler was, so I was very proud of that. And that's it. That's my story. And I was told there's a question and answer now, so if we have anything you want to ask me, we can ask. And if not, I'll pass the mic. Questions? Anyone?
Yeah.
Are you putting cameras in now that you're going to have electricity?
Well, we don't have Wi-Fi. Don't get too fancy. Yeah, you need that. Security light. So that phase one is the farm stand, right? So all this time, produce with no refrigeration, which is insane. So we've been packing coolers and ice and all that for all these years. So first thing is refrigeration, security lights in the stand, and then phase two is electricity down on the farm, because that's a whole nother huge installation. Hopefully putting a walk-in, and I just got a shipping container lock up, and security lights and light it up a little bit more. Because if you're not familiar with our property, we're just north of Sunnyside Cemetery across the street from Edco. So it's down in this little gulch, and once you're down there, you're in another world, which is great when you're down there and you're enjoying something out of context. But if you're, as my son says, a bad boy, then you go down there and nobody can see you. And PD doesn't go down there. And so it's just like your home, you know, if you have security lights and light it up. But eventually I'd love a real-time camera, because then you can call PD and not look at the film later and go, oh shit, they broke in last night again. I know. Yes, ma'am?
Since you're close to like Signal Hill area too, right? How much are they involved at all? Like, are they super? I mean, obviously they're super supportive, but how does that work with the two different cities right there?
It's a challenge. When I call dispatch and so we constantly get vandalized and constantly have break-ins, and every day I go to work, I live in Wrigley, and on my drive, I try not to think about it at the night, and then on my way to work in the morning, the anxiety every day wells up. What am I gonna see when I pull in the gate? What's gonna happen? I don't even know. And so if something bad happened, vandalism, theft, the fence is broken, the greenhouse is thrashed, like whatever, then I call PD, LBPD dispatch. And that's when the problems start, because they say, oh, you're Signal Hill. And I say, no, I swear I'm Long Beach. Oh, no, you're a zip code. And oh, you're this. So you don't get a response straight away. Signal Hill Petroleum has 24/7 access on our roads down below. So they're super great. But it's not their thing, you know, unfortunately. Yeah, it's Long Beach. So Long Beach. Long Beach. No, it's been closed since October. So we have had 2-year lease renewals for the whole time we've been there. And then in October, Park and Rec chose not to renew our lease in a 2-year increment. So we're still working out this long-term lease situation. And so in October, we shut down operations. So everything's been closed since then. Yeah, we do volunteers. Yeah, on Fridays. Right now it's Fridays 9 to 2. I just got a volunteer coordinator, wonderful woman, Susan, and she's a donor as well, so she's really invested in the farm, and master gardener, and super sweet woman who's going to help foster the volunteers and do a hopefully successful program with that. So Fridays 9 to 2, volunteers, and then the website has the calendar, so because the Friday thing is like farming. It's not really family-friendly or family-oriented. And then there's other community days and farm days, and we're going to do a photography workshop, and there's some lunch and a tour stuff coming up. We just had a really big, fun Farm Lot Eats party, and yeah, it was great. Anything else? Yes.
So, will you ever have chickens again? I know you kind of had that experience with that, but...
So, chicken keeping is a whole nother conversation. I have 5 hens at home, and that's good. And they're safe and secure in their little coop, their little run. And when I had livestock at the farm, the problem is that I don't live there, right? So all of these terrible things happen, and then add on top of it, all these terrible things happen to animals when you're not there. And over there, there's nature, hawks and coyotes, and turns out skunks are sons of bitches. So they're a badger. They tunnel under your electric fence, and then they massacre, and they don't eat, but they just kill. So we had a lot of chicken death. And the amount of eggs that we were producing at the peak of it was 114 dozen a week. I had so many hens, and it was never enough. Like, people weren't like, oh, thanks so much for doing that. They were just like, we need more eggs. And so once the flock was decimated by predators, and I mean, we were out there, my husband was out there dawn and dusk and at night, and we have a small child, and we were trapping and lights, and it was awful. It was horrible. So no. Chickens? I know.
Here comes Shaft, everybody!
Chicken keeping and vegetable production don't really go together. Yeah, chickens scratch, and you see I don't know what you're watching, but on my feed I see like the beautiful chicken tractor in the field and all, but they're on like 500 acres, so the chickens are like way the hell over there, and the vegetables are way the hell over there. So it doesn't really go together. But we have bees. We have bees and honey, and that's super low maintenance. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a big box. We changed the soil out twice, stress spacing, and the only thing I have enough rosemary for, if you guys need rosemary, call me. I've got tons of rosemary. Rosemary is the only thing we've been able to grow. Tomatoes, other vegetables. Does your website have, or can you recommend a website or a book or something to, because we bought the good soil and it's,
Farming is hard. And it's all experimenting, It's all trial and error, and you could hire a consultant. I mean, I can give you a list of references. There's workshops all over. We don't really do that anymore because there's so many people doing seed starting and gardening workshops and that kind of thing that we kind of stepped away from that. But I can totally help you a little bit, yeah, for sure. It's hard though. Don't be discouraged. It's not easy.
What percentage of your yield is wholesale to local restaurants versus retail?
So my restaurants pay retail pricing. There's no wholesale pricing.
But I mean
So they pay as if they went to the farmer's market and bought up the table.
No, I mean,
Two.
pricing.
I only have 3 restaurant clients right now. So Chianina, Ponza, and Row, and that's it. And the reason is because when we had our lease troubles in October, and I did damage control basically for a month, Art from Row, he cried that I wasn't going to have that farm. He was literally like destroyed over it. And then Chianina, they're just really easy to work with because they're truly high end, and they don't necessarily order from me. I just give them the best of what I have. And so they can do a chef tasting off of what I can provide for them. At the peak, I had 12 restaurants, and it was really, especially with no refrigeration and volunteers, or had crew on and off. Consistency is a challenge when you're at that level. It's really stressful, and it's not profitable either. So it's really, really hard. But no, the restaurant, it even turned into restaurants because I can't grow everything that everybody wants. Like you, and I'm saying you as the you, not you, but you want corn and peppers and broccoli and all this diversity, but I can't grow that and have it to scale. So I can specialize, and every season I run my numbers and I know what, I can't grow carrots, I can't grow beets, I can't, not consistently and not on a volume level, but I can grow salad and herbs and cut flowers, edible flowers, and microgreens and tomatoes. That's it. So that's kind of where I'm at. And when I sell to the restaurants, I know that they can buy from other people. That's great. And then they get this specialty crop from me. Yes?
What's your favorite thing to grow?
I am a sucker for a tomato. I love it. I actually trimmed today, and I had tomato hands for the first time this season. I was all excited about it. Yeah, that's it. If I just had that and some good salt, that's all I need.
One more question?
Yeah, anyone? No? We're good? All right. Well, thank you so much.
All right, so I'm going to tell you another story. So I was in second grade, and they had They had a day when they invited the fathers to come and talk about what they did for a living. Danny DeShirley's dad was a pilot for Delta. That was really cool. He came in his uniform and he had wings for all of us and maps of their routes. That was very impressive. But it was Denise Jackson's dad that changed my life. Denise Jackson's dad was a chemist, and he came in and he did this demo of crystals that he'd grown. He talked about how you grow crystals. And I was blown away. I'm second grade. I don't know why that impressed me so much, but I decided, and in fact, the note that I wrote him thanking him for coming to the class, it said, I want to be a chemist, CEMIST. So I'm a writer now, RITER. But the thing is, I got the bug, and so that Christmas I got a chemistry set and moved into the garage. And I started acquiring flasks and beakers and alcohol lamps and chemicals, and I began to experiment. And I began to learn about these amazing processes that happen when you heat things or mix things together. You combine acids and bases. And, you know, I really, really became totally into science and that whole thing. And then it occurred to me after I really started enjoying cooking, had I spent that time in the kitchen instead of in the garage? So, you know, flash forward a few years, we talk about community, right? I said family, first community. Well, I went to my first dinner party. Two friends of ours were having us over for dinner, and I was very excited about it. In fact, I was so excited I got there an hour early. I didn't realize it. Knocked on the door. Door opens. Val and Noelle are standing there looking at me. I can't even explain the look on their faces. But they were like blocking my way. I wasn't being invited into the house. And they said, "You're an hour early." And I went, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And they looked at each other, and there was something going on. I couldn't tell what it was. And they looked back at me, and Val says, "Do you know how to make crepes?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." Well, Noelle looked at me, and she goes, "What do you mean you think so?" And I said, "Well, I saw the Galloping Gourmet do it once on TV." And they looked at each other again. The door opened. They escorted me into the kitchen where I found beef stroganoff and a bowl of crepe batter. They really had gotten to that point and thought each other knew how to make crepes. And they didn't. And honestly, I'd never made crepes in my life. But I had, in fact, seen the Galloping Gourmet do it. I used to love watching the Galloping Gourmet, right? Now it's time for short slip. That guy, amazing. It was so fun to watch him. And the reason I remember this is because his technique was to use the bottom of the pan. Not put the crepe inside the pan, but to dip the bottom of the pan in the crepe batter, flip the pan over, and put it on the burner. So I did it. A couple of crepes for test, but then they started working. And within, 20 minutes, I had a pile of crepes. They wrapped that beef stroganoff up, stuck that in the oven, and we had a hell of a dinner. Over the years, I have really realized a passion for cooking myself. I read Julia Child's cookbook, and I started experimenting with her recipes. And by experimenting, when I was in the garage with the chemistry set, I didn't really write anything down. I was doing stuff. My mom used to cook. She never had recipes. It was always different. Every time she made something, it would be different. She always just improvised. So I decided, you know what? The thing to do is to be consistent. Always follow the measurements. How much time? Make sure you keep track of all that stuff. So my technique started getting better. And I'm not a great chef, but I've made a couple of pretty good dishes that I'm pretty proud of. But I am nothing like this guy. Although, honestly, when I was reading your website today, the alchemy part, it just, that's what I was doing in the garage. I was learning about all this stuff. This is what happens with food when you put it in the oven, when you burn something, the caramelizing of the sugar. I love all this stuff. And so That's one of the reasons that I wanted this guy to come talk about that. Ladies and gentlemen, Chef Paul Buchanan.
I've been standing all day, so I'm going to sit too. Right. I guess that's it. Well, anyway, the story that Steven said about somebody coming to your school kind of just like triggered a little electric impulse and went back there and grabbed that information. I don't remember what anybody, and I mean anybody in my 6th grade class had their dads come and do, except the one guy. The one dad, he didn't raise it. He was a fisherman, and he, came home only so often because he was running a whole operation up in Alaska getting Alaskan king crab. So as a 6th grader in I don't know what that was, early 70s, our whole class got to eat king crab legs. And I'm talking the best king crab legs you've ever had in your life, and they were like this big, and he showed us the pictures of how large they were. Somebody holding one up is larger than your arm span. It's pretty amazing. But to this day, I still dream about, how good that crab was. So those taste memories are something that's really strong with you. So my grandmother was probably the first person that was just like, she was the person I looked up to, because she was there every Easter, she was there every Thanksgiving, she made everything from A to Z, and she was a big influence on me. I'm supposed to be following these cards so I don't go on and on and on. So hi, I'm Chef Paul Buchanan. I have Primal Alchemy Catering, which is my company here in Long Beach. We've been around for, I don't know how long, it's 15, 16 years, something like that. I've always liked farm to table. I've loved, we had, as a kid, we had a little garden outside, and the thing is I knew that if I picked the cherry tomatoes, I could put them in my mom's leftover baskets, and I could take them in my wagon, and I could go sell them around the neighborhood. And the lady that had avocados 2 doors over, she had 3 giant trees that were as high as this ceiling, I think, when I was a kid. They were just monstrous, and they just rained avocados. Please take the avocados. Okay, and I would sell those for door to door for 25 cents a piece, and I would sell out every time. So I was kind of like the little marketing door-to-door farmers market guy, I guess, when I was about in 4th and 5th grade. So, but when the eggplants got ripe, my sister and I would conspire, and we would, as soon as they were ripe, just right about when my mom was going to be making that horrible eggplant dish for us, we went out there and took them, and we threw them towards the wall, which there was a line of bushes, and the eggplant would magically disappear and then splat against the wall, and we would, we'd just laugh because, we had destroyed an eggplant that we don't have to eat, which is great. Yeah, but now I like them. So anyway, let me see. So what forces shaped and inspired me? Gardening, that gardening experience probably was pretty strong because my family, that was right outside the door of my room, and I got to learn gardening, and I got to learn, selling, and then my mom tortured us a little bit and took a gourmet cooking class at Fullerton Junior College, and the stuff that she came up with and experimented on us was sometimes good, sometimes bad. But we had that family time around the table. We all sat around. My parents drank Almaden Mountain Rhine wine, and in the back of it there was little chickens running across on the label. I just remember the bottle being on the table. And we bought our we bought like a half a cow every year at the Orange County Fair with another family, and then it would all be wrapped up in paper, and then we had a chest freezer in the garage. And when you got down to where it was the liver, then I was not a fan of that. And thank God for our dog Simone, would eat it until I got caught, and then I would just cover it with enough ketchup so I could get it down. But we didn't have the onions. Maybe that was it. I'd say if I had the onions, it would have been all better. But my grandmother ate real food and had real food, and I really didn't think about the farmer's market because it was just that was the way that she had. She had always grown stuff. She put canned stuff, and she had her pantry was a true pantry where there was just, green beans put up and there was pickles put up, and it was impressive to me. But I was still just like the hamburger and pizza kid. I just wanted like a hamburger and French fries. That's all I really wanted when I was young. But it had an impression on me that lasted. I like my friends, a lot of my friends now are farmers. Sasha's my friend, I hope. I think I picked her up. I think the first time I met Sasha, and I'm not sure if this is true, but I mean, the first time I remember was like, oh yeah, some girl wants to go with you, and you're going to, I forget what I was going to like some kind of,
Santa Monica Farmers Market.
yes, Santa Monica Farmers Market. Yeah, but anyway, I was going up there, and he said, oh, somebody wants to go with you. I said, okay, I'll pick her up, and we'll go up there. And then we chatted on the way up, and then we talked about, the pigs and how I was interested in that, and charcuterie, and, one thing led to another. But I think you took me, I saw I saw that Wrigley farm, but I think that was maybe before you got the one that you have now. Yeah. Yeah.
He was my gardener.
Michael Poupon, yeah. But the collection of, my mom took me to the farmer's market when I came down here from culinary school, and I met, Pete the fish guy, and I met all the, the berry guy, and I met, all those people, Roland Tamai from Tamai Family Farms, and they became my friends, and they're still my friends today, and they're still there at the market, and so they're the ones that are, I can walk up there now, which is amazing I can just get stuff loaded in a big crate and just throw money in their till, and that's a great relationship to be able to have because they know me so well. I know how much they're going to charge for it. I know how much they're going to charge me for it, and I'm blessed with that kind of relationship of seeing that. They are not the guys. Farmers are not the guys that will email you or text you and let you know what they have. At least none of the ones that I know. They are not into that tech thing, but they can grow, they can till the dirt, and they will not always be certified organic because that is very expensive to do, but they will be doing the right thing, and I do ask them about that. Let me see. I think I should cover the Primal Alchemy name a little bit. There's a book called On Food and Cooking that I read in culinary school. And, here's a guy, it's a writer that writes about food, and it was dispelling those rumors of food that we've heard over the years. Oh, if you do this, this will be there. Oh, if you have avocados and you make guacamole and you put the seed in there, the seed will keep it from turning brown. A light bulb will do the exact same thing. If you take one of these light bulbs and you put it in guacamole and you put a seed in the guacamole, both of the things where they're keeping the air from touching the guacamole, you won't have oxidation. So I learned a lot of that, and that got me interested in that alchemy. And what he had said in there was cooking was the primal alchemy. Cooking is the first science that man ever did. And I thought, wow, if I have a restaurant someday, which I haven't yet, but I might, I will call it Primal Alchemy. And when we started the catering company so many years ago, we said, well, I'm going to call it Primal Alchemy. I know that doesn't really elicit ideas of delicious food to people, but as my beautiful wife had mentioned one time, is like, I think that name has really like kept a lot of people that we didn't want to be our customers away from us. And the people that got the idea thought, wow, that's a cool name, and then they became our customers. But I wanted to battle, I like to battle against the chemicals and fight for real food. So that's, I'm very, very happy to be experimenting and knowing all the chemical reactions that happen in food and what happens when you put acid on there in the form of lemon juice and lime juice and what's the difference between those two, and then culturally, knowing all that. So it's, my life will never be boring. I have unlimited amount of things to learn. I will never stop learning. There's so many different new techniques to try every time. So I guess it's much like music. Music, you'll never learn all of it, and you can keep on going and going. How did I come to Long Beach? I graduated from culinary school. I was actually, I born and raised in Fullerton, and I went into the Air Force after a very brief time in community college. But I went in the Air Force and stayed in defense electronics for 10 years. And when I was 29, I said, I've got to go back to college. I looked at Cal State Long Beach and I said, I really don't want to be an electrical engineer. I was in electronics. And so I met a guy that was actually a construction worker of all things, came over to a friend's house when I was in the Marshall Islands and came to cook for us. And he did everything off the top of his head. And I said, I want to cook like that guy. So I did. I went to the California Culinary Academy and finally graduated with honors. My family was so proud that I wasn't a C plus B minus student anymore. I got straight A's. So I guess I had found my calling. And they said, my chefs that I was learning from, work for the absolute best restaurant you can, and that will become your reputation. And so I opened Zagat back then, long before we had, Google and online searches. And Zagat said, okay, here's the top 3 restaurants in LA, and here's the top restaurants in Orange County. And then I proceeded to just like check off my list and go work for those places. And then so my reputation became, working for, the Patina and the Water Grill and all those great restaurants. But anyway, I graduated from culinary school, came down here, worked for whoever I could, and my mom was in Long Beach, and I thought, well, I'm a poor student, very poor. I come back and I'm gonna live with mom finally, and she was gonna be really happy about that. And she then, like I said, introduced me to the farmer's market and things. And then I met Dana, and I ended up staying here, because I had moved to West Hollywood and around a little bit, but I ended up coming back here, and she was going to help me find an apartment, but I think somehow, how did I end up talking you into moving in with you somehow? Because I was a smooth talker. It was just like selling those avocados and those tomatoes door to door when I was a kid. So I mean, I'd rather save the time for answering questions, so I'm going to keep on moving through my cards as best I can. What did I miss? I missed card number 2. Food is medicine and medicine is food. That is probably something that's more recent to me, just because it's something that's a driving message that I want to give to the kids that I teach for Days of Taste, which I'll touch on in a second. But there's, my grandmother was just like, just kind of know to, here, take a pill for it and it'll solve it. To food industry, packaging and not telling us what's in our food, which is really upsetting to not know that there's glyphosate in every single wheat product, every single corn product that's made commercially that's not organic. That's upsetting to me that I have, something that's equivalent of Drano or weed killer or an antibiotic that's killing the good bacteria in my stomach in all of my food, and nobody's telling us. So that's kind of upsetting. So I want people to know that food is medicine, and then you teach the young kids, and then they learn. And so I'm happy about not having any chemicals. I don't take any pills for anything. I don't take any drugs for everything, and I really just try to say, hey, I'm gonna eat better food, and I'll do a lot better like that. So. I think what I'm doing now is I've tried to be a forerunner on farm to table for a long time. Before it was popular, we were doing that. We were buying from those farmers. There was nobody else at the farmers market that I remember being a chef except for one Italian guy that had a restaurant up on Las Caras Diagonal, and I don't think he's there anymore, but he was buying tomatoes from Roland to my family farms. So he was the only guy that I really saw. And it wasn't popular to have that on your menu, and I was listing farmers' names, Alex, Weiser Family Farms, to my family farms, Garcia Farms. I wanted people to know on my menus for catering that, where their food was coming from, because it was important to me, and I wanted it to be important to them. So that's the way I got that through. Everybody else now is finally catching up, which is great, through media and other things, and because of the efforts of, like Sasha and myself, and it's really a small band of people in Long Beach. For 500,000 people that we have, it's a small group that are still just like pushing for things like that. Kelly Johnson was at the farmers market today as a market manager, and she's another person that's been, really in there in the fight of trying to get that farm to table stuff to us. But it's a challenge because the greenwashing, you'll go to a restaurant and they'll say something. I was at a huge event with hundreds of people, and I'm looking at the menu, and I'm at the convention center, and I go like, oh, Weiser asparagus. I said, wow, I know Alex Weiser. He says, I didn't think he ever grew asparagus. I'm texting him, hey, Alex, you grow asparagus? No, why? I showed him a picture of the menu, and he says, oh, that's interesting that somebody's saying that it's from your farm, and you don't even grow asparagus. He never has. So that's kind of that greenwashing that we see now, because people say, wow, it's popular now. Farm to table is popular. Saying this from a certain farm is popular, and so that will help me sell more. That will help me look better. But the greenwashing is something it's tough. And now how do we still keep ourselves one step ahead of that, as Primal Alchemy has been doing that for long? How do we stay relevant? So vegetarian, vegan menus that we have that are just specifically for that and catering. It took us a while to do our first website, and now we just finished our next website, and it's much more friendly on your phone, and there's a lot more information in there. It's a lot more detailed, but we're starting a whole division just for that vegan, vegetarian, and of course, all of our menus are custom. So we custom make each one for every group of people, because there's always going to be somebody that is intolerant for this and not, can't have this, can't have that. So we're always accommodating for that kind of thing. When the TED conference was here for the 5 years, I got a phone call out of the blue, and it was, I answer my phone, oh, TED conference, oh, they're interested, they're going to be here, and they want our food. And I said, so I hung up the phone, and I tell Dana, I says, hey, this place, these TED guys, I don't know who they are. Said, what do you mean? TED is like huge, it's like, it's crazy. This is like, they want us, and we weren't going after them. They found us. They found us because of what we were doing, because of our associations, because of our farm to table, from our ethics. They wanted us. And they were ruthless as far as their tasting. They wanted a tasting. It was very regimented. They were going to have 3 people there. It was going to be right at 12 o'clock. And, and here's the muckety-muck, the highest person that was doing that tasting. And they hold their cards close, and they didn't really tell us, how we did. And then they finally said, oh, yeah, okay, you guys can do our picnic for 1,000 people. And so that was the first year. And then, oh, can you do these box lunches? And then the next year it expanded, and then the same people came to the tasting, I think, the second year. And then the third year they just sent just the underlings and said, oh, yeah, just go for the free food because it's going to be amazing. We already know it's good. They would call us at the end of the event, and they go like, okay, here's our decompression meeting. It's like, how did it do? Was it good for you guys? Yeah, good for us. Okay, next year have the corn pudding again. We're done. We'll tell you what the theme is 4 months ahead of time, and that became a great relationship. So, and finally, the last year, I was able to get a lot of local Long Beach people there. Charlie Moore, I said, Charlie Moore, I want to buy futures. I want to buy futures and vegetables. And so I bought his entire farm, and I said, I want you to plant this, this, and this, and this, and this. We went through the seed catalog, picked it out, and for actually 5 months ahead of time, I had him grow everything that I wanted for the TED conference as much as possible. And of course, beets and carrots, no, they don't grow as fast, so I got some small ones. But of course, I supplemented them from the farmer's market, but really, I had amazing radishes, I had amazing greens, and we had all these farmers and bakers and things represented at the table. So, all the fish for that was caught right off the coast, a sustainable black cod. We had blue crabs, or the little local crabs that we had for an hors d'oeuvre. Everything that we had on the menu was all driven by local, seasonal, and the footprint on that salad was, a mile, 1.3 miles or something from Charlie's farm. So it was really nice to have that. Let's see. I gotta check my notes here. Okay, good. I'm almost on the last page. Food equity. What we're involved in now is more food equity, schools, Long Beach Unified School District, Community gardens, we still are promoting those. We have been in our own community garden for a long time, and I'm excited about planting now because we've finally got rid of all of our kales, and we already have our tomato starters. I'm a big fan of tomatoes like you are, and I have a little competition with friends about, which varieties are the best that year, though I make soups out of a lot of them. Let's see what else. Days of Taste is a program that I've done for 18 years, and today was the second day of a 2-day program that I just finished for Fremont Elementary. I really like working with the kids. They know enough about food to have the ideas, but they're not so set in their ways that they won't change. With information from somebody they respect chefs, and you say, here's where the food comes from. I took them to the garden yesterday, and they were eating kale as fast as I could give it to them, right off the plant, just handing it to them. Can I have some? Can I have some? Can I have some? Because I was there, and they got to see it, where it comes from. There's been years where we had carrots, and they pull them out, and they wash them off, and the kids are just eating the carrots. And then when they learned that they could eat weeds, when they could eat mallow, that's a weed. It grows everywhere. The mallow is, and they're just eating the mallow, just like the weeds. They were like great. They were almost better than goats. It just like mowing through all the areas and then just weeding the whole place for it. And parents were going like, I can't believe you're having my kids eat weeds. I said, well, they're great. They're nutritious. It's way better, less bitter than arugula and a lot of other greens. So knowing that, teaching them about stinging nettles, teaching them about, other things that are out there to eat that we're kind of having the blinders on and we don't see. It's very rewarding teaching them how to read labels, know the ingredients that they're eating, and those ideas of food is medicine and medicine is food. Sitting on panels, to talk about like straws and the challenge with that and plastic in our environment. That could be an entire talk I could give here for 2 hours on plastic, and along with Charlie Moore as my friend that knows far too much of the plastic we're producing that it doesn't go away. It's in the air, it's in the water, it's in the ocean. Thank goodness, Long Beach just said that's enough for styrofoam, and so we're making the right choice on those environmental issues. So I could talk forever, so I'm gonna just take a few questions now, and
Yes, Chef Paul. What is the date of your farm-to-table dinner that is a fundraiser for the Carmelitos Housing Project Farms?
it's the last Sunday of September. So we'll be announcing it next week, actually. We had to take a little while to try to make sure it didn't conflict with something else, and we had to talk to the people that were at the growing experience, to Holly that was there. But yes, we have grown that for, I think, 8 years now or something. 9th year. This will be the 9th year. And it's the best of the best as far as chefs that are there, and you will never get fed better in your life than the people that have been at that farm dinner.
Are you still partnering with Randy Keller of Wine Country?
Yes, we will have Randy again this year as well. So he was nice enough to pour some Prosecco and make available things. But I mean, to be on that farm where a lot of that food's growing and all the chefs really enjoy their time together, it's an amazing thing, and all the courses of food. I mean, nobody is hungry for a couple days after that because there are so many courses that come out. And like I said, it's the best of the best. So I'm looking forward to our lineup this year. Okay, so do I have any other questions? Yes.
Where did you go to culinary school?
At the California Culinary Academy in San Francisco. Allison, what are you gonna ask?
Who, and I'm probably, this is probably multiple questions, but who's your favorite chef? Like who and why? Like why do you love this chef so much? Who is your inspiration?
I got a chance to work with Thomas Keller pretty early. I was before that he had French Laundry, and I worked with him, and we were doing a course up in West Hollywood, and he was doing a dessert course, and he had about I think he only had about 80 people to feed, but he had one little round crock like this of creme brulee, and I go like, what What are you going to do with that? You just have one crock. That's it. He says, oh, no. We're going to take one spoon at a time and put it out on the table, and then you're going to sprinkle sugar on it, and you're going to brulee each spoon, like one spoon. That's all you're going to do. And I went, really? Okay. And so it ended up being this little flight of desserts, and that was one of the components that I got to work on. And then he was doing his little cone with the tuna and, the little cones that he'd had. So it was really nice, and I think it was Dana and I were still dating, and we went up there when we heard French Laundry had opened, and he greeted us and showed us a kitchen, and he had the only decoration in the whole place was one chef coat on the wall, and that was it. There was nothing. There was no artwork. That place was stark, naked, and he was serving, I think we got 18 courses or 16 courses to our table, amazing food. And then we went up several years later, and then so hard to get in. But I think I've been up there 3 times. But every time he's very humble. But he's, he was driven, and it's quality and focus, and the single most important talent of any cook is to be able to season food correctly. Know how to season with salt or something, or salt and pepper. And that was it. You could teach other things, but it's, you want that excitement from a person that they like to cook. They like to cook, I can teach you, but you have to have at least that curiosity and drive and willing to just show up. If you show up, I can't tell you how many people have tried out in our kitchen and never showed up. They never showed up. They showed up late. They made excuses. You have to show up. Anybody else? Yes.
Are you a fan of measurements, or do you go more by taste?
When you're baking, you have to follow those measurements. When you're baking, you have to follow those measurements. But really, probably 75% of cooking, maybe more, is technique. It's like once you learn that technique, that's in your back pocket, and then you're able to, do something again, and then you learn how to vary it. And then in your mind, I taste everything in my brain, because I take all those taste memories and I blend them together, and I go, this goes with this, asparagus and Sauvignon Blanc. Oh, no, I'm not gonna do that. So, so you try to think. And I just had something today, actually at 4th and Olive. I had chocolate with rosemary and sea salt in a thin little wafer that he was using for his bacon lard, pig lard ice cream or whatever it was. So it was just an amazing combination with that chocolate and the rosemary and the salt. I hadn't really ever mixed rosemary and dark chocolate before, but it was fun. Did you have one question too?
From a business standpoint, first you had the TED conference, and so you're scaling up for 1,000 dinners for.
Yeah, we did up to 2,000 at the end. That was like,
Right.
yeah.
And then the next year, we're not coming to Long Beach anymore. And then you have dinners for 20, or you have dinners for 60, or you have dinners for 400. I mean, how do you guys scale your business to be able to whip that out?
Yeah, well, much like gardening, do not get into cooking as thinking that you're going to have an $80,000 a year police retirement program. It's not going to happen. So, I could have easily chose to sell cheaper food to people and have no conscience and probably be a lot more made more money from it. But I have chosen to stick by my standards and what I feel strongly about, and not make much money, but still have a great life here in Long Beach, because I love Long Beach. Yeah, love being here. Thank you very much.
All right, so we've talked with the farmer and the chef. So let's see, sometime in the early 90s, somebody told me, oh, you need to go talk to the people at Artists Reaching Kids on 4th Street. They need you. And I said, okay. I said, talk to this guy, Greg Pickens. So I called him, we talked, and he said, okay, yeah, come on down, meet me at Portfolio. I didn't know what Portfolio was, I have to be honest with you. So I go down there, and I meet Greg at Portfolio, and we have coffee, and we talk. And a couple of things happened. First, he and I became fast lifelong friends. And second, I started working with artists reaching kids and spending a lot of time on 4th Street, which was really interesting. At that time, 4th Street was kind of a mixed bag, if you know what I mean. Why I wanted Kasdan Kirsteiner to be here tonight was because of what happened. And I won't give her all the credit for it, but a large part of the credit to what happened with 4th Street came from Portfolio. Portfolio became, we talk about community, okay? Neighborhood, right? She opened this coffee house. So, I mean, historically, places people congregate, church, pubs, coffee houses, right? So these are the places where people get together and talk. They share ideas. Well, her place became not just a place for the people in the community to gather, but the people who were trying to improve the community and make it a better place, meeting there. And, you know, honestly, when I think about it, it's not just about Long Beach, but historically, I mean, when I think about our nation's founding mothers and fathers, I am pretty sure that they did not plan the revolution in tea shops. So I would like to introduce to you Kasdan Kirsteiner, the founder of Portfolio Coffee House.
So, community, and I think that's kind of what we're here. This is what this night is all about. And the odd thing is, I have a confession to make. I am not even an American citizen. I am a German citizen. I immigrated here kind of right about the time I met Steve. I moved here in 1989. Where I come from, you go to a new place and you want to meet people, you want to connect with people, you want to find what's happening, and you do that in a cafe. So I moved to Long Beach, I had my internship, I'm fresh out of college, I have 6 months that I have to spend in this country. I have never been here, I didn't know anybody, I didn't have a car, I didn't have anything. I had a place to work for 8 hours a day, and I had an apartment, and that's it. And then, you know, you come home at 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and I wanted to like meet people, I wanted to do things, I wanted to explore on the weekends, so I asked, like, where do I go? And the place didn't exist. You have to go to a bar, that's it. And I'm like, I have to go to a bar, I have to sit at a bar and drink, and that's where I meet people. And, here at that workplace, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, I'm from Europe. You go to a cafe, there's like a center of town, and you hang out, and you meet other people, and you talk, and you connect, and you find like-minded people. And it didn't exist here. And I just thought, oh my God, that's crazy. Long story short, I finished my internship and I traveled back to Germany, and I came back and I was kind of, maybe I just want to explore this country a little bit more, and the missing part, I just felt like I just needed to do this, and so that's how Portfolio started. There was a vacant building at the corner of 4th and Wanapero, and we actually opened in the very beginning as an art gallery. So we hung local art, and what connected was actually people came in and there was a couch and they hung out, and what they wanted was the same thing that I wanted. They wanted community, they wanted to talk, they wanted to share, and they wanted to sit down, and at that time you played Pente, they wanted to play games and things like that, and that's how Portfolio got started. And I feel like to a great part, this is why we are still in business almost 30 years later. People want that community. They want that connection. I mean, I'm looking around the room and I feel like I've connected almost with everyone at some weird level, and that's what I love about Long Beach, and it's almost no accident that I ended up in Long Beach. I feel like I was meant to move here and be connected and connect people. I mean, Aaliyah and Sasha, I mean, I feel like, they're just paths that we all cross in Long Beach, and it's an amazing city, and just like Steve said, we want to, dive in and change things and make things better. So that's how my life started in Long Beach, opening a little cafe. People appreciated the artwork, but what they came back for every single day was that cup of coffee that we brewed in the back room, and they're like, hey, do you got some of that coffee? So, little by little, portfolio improved. We got a bigger coffee maker, we got an espresso machine, we just tables and chairs and handmade and, whatever it took. At that time, 30 years ago, you could still do that. That was literally possible on a credit card. That's all I had, I couldn't even really open a bank account. I couldn't get a loan, nothing. It was on a credit card budget, and whatever penny I made, I stuck back into this. And 4th Street was the perfect breeding ground for this business because it was just like a sponge. There were a bunch of artists living there. The other storefronts were boarded up, and those people came out, and they're like, hey, what are you doing in there? I'm like, well, we're opening a coffee house. But it was just so refreshing to have this. At the time, we were open ungodly late at night until 3 in the morning. I had never even heard of Starbucks. I didn't know what those people were doing. I had no idea. And all of a sudden, this whole Starbucks thing happened, and then people were like, hey, can you start opening earlier? This like 9 o'clock thing is not really working. I hear that's what you do. You go there early and you buy your coffee, and next thing I know, we're open earlier and earlier, and hours get longer and longer. But I think what really stuck with me, and what I love to do, is just be in this business of just interacting with people and doing community-minded things. Anybody can sell a cup of coffee, and that's not it. That's not it for me, and that was never it for me. And I think just like all of us here that spoke tonight, I certainly don't do it for the money, because I have to tell you people there's no money in running a coffee shop. That's not there, but I get up every single morning and I love going to work. I love talking to people. I love connecting with people. I love hearing their stories, and it makes a difference in their world. They get that coffee or that tea or whatever they drink, and it enables them to go to work and make it through their day, and then afterwards they come back and then they share, and it's this connection point. And that's great to see. It's really great to see people that come through life and have children and come back, and I'm like, oh my God, you're still here. It's been so long. That's wonderful to see. So that was almost 30 years ago, portfolio. And I honestly don't know whose crazy idea that was to, open up another one and then another one, but I guess that's kind of what we do in life. There was a little bit in the 2000s where the market completely went under, and we actually noticed that portfolio that folks were coming in and having lunches with us, and they're just having a sandwich that we're making in the back room, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of interesting. They're coming in for food, and we never really had that, and we had to employ another person because we got too busy to one person couldn't keep up. And kind of what it taught me was that there was a need that folks couldn't afford those expensive business lunches anymore. There's kind of the economy, the bottom fell out, and you went to your local coffee shop, and that's where you actually even had your business meetings, and people came in and had lunches and brought their business associate and had lunch with us, and I'm like, oh my God, okay. And out of that experience, Berlin was born, and I thought, okay, well, maybe there's something to it, providing a place where people can connect, have a meeting where, if you want to have a meeting there and sit a little longer and then have something to eat as well, maybe that's where the future is. And so I opened up my second business and with a larger kitchen and actually kind of dove into that a little bit more. But again, it was, the love of just tasting things and providing things that people like and connecting people and just giving them a space to be. And, if you've ever been to Portfolio, like anybody is welcome. You can come in, I always tell people like if the night shift and the morning people, if they would meet, they would go like, oh, what are you doing here? I mean, it's the business person meets the student, meets the farmer, meets, anybody, and there's just no holding back. You can be who you are, and that kind of, I think it's also a little bit of thing about Long Beach. Long Beach makes that, and Long Beach makes that happen. I don't think I could have opened my business in another city. I don't think I could have done that in LA. It's too big, and Long Beach is kind of a small town that really has qualities that really attracted me to living here, coming from Europe, coming from another country. And, it does create this connection and this homey feel, where certain things are appreciated. So I think I've always been interested in just, I hate to call it community activism, but, I think it's just in me to kind of, if I see something that I would like to change, and if I feel like I have like a minuscule, part in that, I would, I'll just give anything that I have to make that change, and that started many, many years ago, with tree plantings and community events, wherever, if I'm not at work, I would go on the weekend for a tree planting, or, cleaning up the beach, or whatever it took. And again, it's this feeling of community. There's nothing better than just really working hard and, planting a bunch of trees or cleaning up somebody's yard or, something, and helping somebody else. I mean, that connection that you make with people is just amazing. It's so fulfilling. You just come home and you're just beaten at the end of the night, and you're like, wow, I really did this. I can't believe I just, did that. So I've done that, I mean, Steve and I, we worked on, on 4th Street. I mean, 4th Street was nothing at the time, and it's like we would meet every Saturday morning for I don't know how many years, and we swept the street. I think that was our simple goal. Let's just sweep the street from one end to another and just clean it up. Just show people that we care, and show people that we care about the neighborhood. And then slowly people, started moving in, and shops starting, opening there. And it's like, wow, okay. And it's just showing folks that you're there and that you're connected, hey, I live right here and I want this to be better. And that's how we kind of slowly turned 4th Street around. And, it's like places like ARC. I don't think anybody remembers ARC, but, that was a phenomenal, oh, okay, Dana does. So it was an amazing organization. And so it's lovely to be connected to that and have those memories. For me, it's like now it's making efforts to really connect with the community and, doing the straw challenge and, things that come up, and there are people that all of a sudden pop up in your community, and you're like, oh, I want to support that. There's somebody like Steve Rice. We all know Steve. He's sitting right there. Steve does a beach cleanup, and he collects straws. And sometimes you just need, I just be reminded, it's like the tiniest little thing. And so we're working on a little project together. But that's kind of, making a tiny little change, and I think that's really, really wonderful. So again, as you heard, moved here from Germany, went to school in Europe. I went to a a small high school, but my grandparents and my parents always had a garden. We always grew our vegetables. I still go back to Germany. And, you know, the greatest moments are really with my dad, like when my dad shows me his garden, and it's like, I planted this and I did this, and, you know, look at this. I mean, it's really, really amazing to see that. And, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have that background, but not all of us do. A very memorable moment was going with Aaliyah to Pismo Beach, and we went to the farm that she used to buy from. And I now have a stepdaughter. She was maybe 6 at the time, and we got to take her. She had never seen how a vegetable was grown. She had no idea that carrots are coming out of the ground and you brush them off and you can eat them. And it was like completely mind-blowing to her, you know, just like, oh yeah, that's where your vegetables come from. So it's really just wonderful to see people like Aaliyah that, you know, facilitated those things in my life. So thank you very much for doing that. And, you know, so it's a great connection. You know, I may have had that experience, but it's wonderful to kind of pass that on to my children through somebody here in Long Beach. And so came from Germany, and I never left. I never lived anywhere else. I never even lived anywhere else in the United States. I mean, I've traveled, but I, for some reason, just got stuck here in Long Beach. I swear, you know, sometimes my husband laughs when we drive by somewhere, and I said, oh, I used to live there, and he's like, oh my God, you've lived everywhere, and I'm like, I don't know, I feel like I haven't, but I guess there are a lot of places in Long Beach where I moved around and lived, and it's probably within a 10-block radius. It's just always been around Retro Row. I've just always been there. I think there's just something that drew me to that area, up and coming, you know, close to the beach still. Oh, and Steve is giving me the gotta wrap it up sign. So, but questions. So, right. Are there any? Oh my God. Yes.
So you have 4th Street, the theater, yeah? What's in front of the theater? Or tell us about the theater.
So the theater, so basically I married the theater. It's not my theater, but my lovely husband Jan is sitting over there. So does he know that he owns a theater? I don't know about that. So, well, really, really quick, because it's kind of a funny story, but my husband and I met because the art theater, I heard a rumor that somebody bought the art theater and it was being renovated, and I was like, oh, I gotta get a cafe in there because, you know, there's like this there are 2 storefronts, and I hounded him. I emailed him and I emailed him. I'm like, hey, I'm still here. You know, are you gonna do this thing? Because I want that cafe in there. So we finally met, and I finally actually got my cafe space, and I got to open the coffee house in there, and learned my lesson. You know, too small, couldn't make a go of it, and had to close it. Right now, in the theater is a little falafel shop on one side and a wine bar on the other side. And that seems to really work. So luckily, I'm not running the falafel shop or the wine bar, and I have nothing to do with that. So too small for coffee.
So you got a husband out of that?
I got a husband out of that, yes, thank you. Yeah. So emailing, just hounding them works. Yes, work for me. Other questions? Oh.
So whatever happened with the open mic at Portfolio?
Oh gosh, oh my God, they're Steve. So open mic needs an open mic night host. And so we've had several hosts. Open mic, it still says on our drop envelope for Wednesday nights, it says Hell Night on there, I can show you that. But it was, you love it or you hate it, but it stands and falls with the open mic night host. And we literally, you know, at one point had some really wonderful host and didn't have anybody to replace them. And I didn't want to replace it with somebody not so awesome. and then just experience this like terrible, oh. And I have to say, Ventiagua is doing a phenomenal job. They always did. Angie was always there at the time, and I just felt like, you know, they're doing great. Why continue and maybe not? So it might come back if somebody comes along and says, hey, you know, I want to be your host. Yes, I would be totally open to that. We did everything, yes, and maybe that was our downfall. So we did everything. So we did music, spoken word. We really had no restrictions. Yes. But we did it, I don't know how many years we did it, like probably, so it's been almost 30 years of portfolio, so for 20 years we did that. And
I just want to thank you. I was one of those people that came in when it was an art gallery
oh my God.
down the street. In the very early days, it was Meow and you and the art
Yes,
theater.
that was
And
it. That was it.
like-
That was it.
So,
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for sticking it out because you were there, you were the anchor. You helped to create one of the most beautiful streets that we
Oh,
have,
thank you. Yeah.
in Long Beach, trust me.
No, thank you. I think it was a group. I mean, I think it was really the 4th Street merchants, like one by one. There's just, you know, all of a sudden there's like more of us. There was not just Kathleen and I from Meow. All right, I'm being kicked off.
Okay, so 3 takeaways from our featured speakers. Work is hard. Not any money in doing these wonderful projects, but you might hook up. Okay? All right, so at this point, we shift gears to our open mic, which is 5-minute stories. They don't necessarily need to be about food and community, but I have to cop to something here. One of the other reasons that I did this was because of an experience I had, I don't know how many years ago it was a long time ago, looking for something else to do. And somebody said, oh, you should talk to this group called Food Finders. And I called them up, I found out what they were about, and I'm going to let Patty tell you, but what I ended up doing was really amazing and life-changing. They gave me the keys to a van, they gave me a hand truck, and a bunch of empty cardboard boxes, and a list of all the shelters and hospices in Long Beach. And my mission was to go down in the Marina Farmers Market on Sunday, introduce myself to the marketing manager and all of the vendors, and at the end of the market, go around and pick up whatever produce was left over or that they would care to donate. Because I got to tell you, the farmers understand, and they were really generous. And I got to know them. And it was an amazing experience. And it actually kind of led me to my own, I had an organic garden in my backyard for a while. And I will tell you this, there is nothing more satisfying, pardon me, than eating vegetables that you grow yourself, okay? Grape yellow tomatoes that taste like candy, okay? Being able to make salads like off the plant 5 minutes before you're serving them, it's amazing, okay? So, I brought in a ringer for the first open mic slot. Food Finders changed my life, and I wanted to make sure they were represented here tonight. So I would like to introduce to you their executive director, Patty Larson, to talk about what Food Finders does.
Hi, everybody. Really happy to be here. Thanks, Steve, for having me come up. I'm just going to chat for a few minutes because you guys have stayed here a while with us. Basically, like Steve said, Food Finders has been around now for 29 years as of this month. So we have been very fortunate to collect over 140 million pounds of food in the time that we've been around. And we started off with our founder, Arlene, and a couple of volunteers going out, like Steve said, to some farmers markets and a couple restaurants, taking food directly over to some of the shelters and pantries in Long Beach. So what started with her and a couple people has now grown to 13 staff. We have hundreds of volunteers locally and all over LA, Orange County, and it's been an amazing journey for me so far. I started in 2009 as a volunteer, started doing some marketing, we got some funding, and then Arlene retired, is semi-retired, and I took over for her in 2011. So in that time, we've gotten a little more name recognition, we've gotten a lot more food, and we're really excited because as a community, everybody is just so engaged. We have all these volunteers working with us daily. Some of them have been with us since the beginning for 29 years. We actually have some people that go out still, they've brought in their kids, they have their grandkids engaged now. It's really amazing. We've got businesses that donate locally, Chef Paul. We've got some restaurants, some hotels. We've got the produce mart. We've got farmers markets. So a lot of the food that we get is prepared. So food like that goes out to somewhere like Christian Outreach and Action downtown where they do meals every day. They can take the food right away, get it to their people having lunch or dinner. Imagine getting some of Chef Paul's overages for your dinner. And then we have people from Trader Joe's will get, produce and packaged meats and bread and salads, whatever they have, and that goes to places like a church pantry, and they're doing a distribution of groceries so people can take home something that they can prepare or eat that same day or over the course of the week. And then we have schools and places like Kaiser Cafeteria, not the hospital food, but their corporate cafeterias will donate from, they have pans of rice or beans or pasta, and that will go out to somebody that's doing a distribution or a meal also. So the great thing about it is all this food that might have been thrown away because somebody wasn't conscious or didn't realize it was safe to donate is now is being collected, and it's going to people that need it, and it's for people that they just may run out of money at the end of the month and they just need an extra hand up. And it's not just the homeless guy on the street. We've got families, we've got college students, we've got seniors, so many people that are really struggling, unfortunately still. We'd like to be putting ourselves out of business, but so far we're still there. So it's just really great to see. I find now that I met our founder, I'm in Seal Beach and she's in Seal Beach, and having been in Long Beach, I realize it's really like 1 or 2 degrees of separation. It's amazing how many people everybody knows, even though Long Beach is a huge city. So anyway, thanks for having me, Steve. It's a little bit about us.